there. Welcome to episode 10 of our television podcast, Betty Draper Sucks. My name is Cameron. My co-host's name is David. Not sure what his middle name is. What's your middle name, Dave?
Hello, and my middle name is Anthony.
Really? That's a pretty nice middle name. David Anthony.
Thanks.
Nice. I'm not going to say your last name because I don't want anybody on Facebook knowing what it is.
Yeah, I appreciate that. It's something I want to keep secret.
This week we've got the outstanding second to last episode of the second season of Game of Thrones. Mad Men winding down. Girls with only a couple episodes left, and the same for Veep. But first we're going to talk about girls. And I'm going to have Dave lead off on his thoughts on the episode.
This was probably the funniest episode of the whole season so far for me, this one. It was much more farcical. The content was much more apart from at the end, the content was much more sort of, superficial. If that's but not in a bad way. Like, it was all sort of on the surface, and it wasn't particularly it wasn't particularly deep. It was just kind of light-hearted comedy, although there were deep, parts to it. But yeah, it was one of my favourite episodes of the whole season.
My favourite part of the episode was seeing Adam in a shirt.
Yeah, it was pretty weird. I couldn't get around it.
No, but really, it was interesting in this episode that you kind of see that Adam actually has his own thoughts and feelings about this relationship with Hannah, and that it wasn't just, something to him, that he was viewing her more the way that she viewed him, or that the audience viewed him as some kind of calloused person who used, someone for sex and didn't really care and was very blasé and very aloof. And you kind of see that he was frustrated with the way she acted. And of course it ended with him screaming at her, asking her if she wanted him to be her boyfriend. And when her, Marnie, and Adam get in the cab together with his bike all scrunched together, and Hannah smiles as the episode ends, and you can presume that she is now his girlfriend, which is an interesting scenario to happen, because as of a few episodes ago, I did not think that would happen.
Yeah, it was interesting the way that the show turned around the relationship on its head, whereas, so far we've thought Adam's the one that's using Hannah, and it was kind of flipped on its head all in a really short space of time in this one.
Well, you kind of feel that Adam would be a device for Hannah to kind of realize her own faults and the kind of things that she shouldn't be wanting in a person. And I think the show kind of did kind of tricked us into thinking that in the way that now that they seem to be together. And it's a great, thing. Great. It's typical of Hannah and her selfishness and the kind of really unlikable person that she is. That's the kind of scenario that would come out of a relationship like that.
Everybody was really selfish in this episode. Marnie's selfishness was probably the funniest out of all of them.
Typical hot girl who thinks everything that happens to her is the only thing everyone else wants to talk about. She's just annoying, just this. Ugh. She I don't like her.
No, she's quite unlikable, but she was still pretty hilarious. The way that she kept sitting down with all these people and having the exact same conversation about the relationship every time she's sitting down, and the one dude just gets up and just walks off.
I thought it was outstanding how she was so conceited and so selfish to think that her boyfriend wasn't going to move on, even if it had been 2 weeks. A lot of people get into relationships soon after other ones, and the fact that she got so upset about it and was mad at him for it when she had played with his heart like she was a cat and his heart was a toy, was a big character flaw that I saw in her. I mean, not that it hadn't been revealed before, but that whole scene was pretty funny to me, that she would get so upset. I mean, obviously it's understandable that, the person you'd been with for so long, you don't want to see them drop you, and forget you, but the fact is she wasn't enjoying being with him at all, and she finally got to see that, he wasn't, going to die as soon as she broke up with him.
I like how this episode gave pretty much equal share to all four of the main girls as well. Obviously, last week's episode was exclusively Hannah, and this week made up for it by featuring all four of them, and all four of them had sort of movement forward in their storyline, even though Shoshana was pretty brief, but still hilarious.
I thought that it was pretty hilarious that that Jessa's boss what's that guy's name? Jeff, isn't that his name?
Yeah.
It was funny that he brought the wine to the party with a bunch of people. He's so out of touch, that poor guy, and he's this whole side story with Jessa and Jeff that was kind of playing out to be a little miniature crush between the both of them. Actually was recognized by both characters on screen in this episode. And Jessa, in her way, insults a couple characters in a great scene where she insults somebody by name but doesn't represent the subculture they come from. And later, Jeff gets punched in the nose from the two people, which, I felt was going to happen. The crusty punks. And then they're in the hospital, and he starts crying, and he's a big pussy, and he's probably hates his wife, and he hates his life because he's 40 and he's got 2 kids and he doesn't have a job. And Jessa's this free-spirited girl who's got no cares or no beliefs, and he kind of sees everything that he wishes he could be in her. And plus, she's cute, so he wants to nail her and feel like a man. And now he can't because he's got a broken nose in front of her, and he's a pussy, and he brought wine to a big party.
I love that wine thing. It works on so many great levels. He's out of touch. And it's just such a little thing, like having the bottle of wine and saying, I brought a bottle of wine to this party, but it just means it's got so many meanings to it. It's just such a great little bit. Speaking of great little bits, the Shoshana cutaways running away from Ray, who's her crack. What was it? Crack. I can't remember what they said now. Crack supervisor or something like that.
Crack spirit guide.
Crack spirit guide. That's right. Yeah. Those were nice little cutaways. And those two are hopefully going to kindle something because they're two of the funniest characters in the whole show.
I can massage your groin non-sexually. Yeah. Okay. Yeah, this isn't sexual at all. It actually feels pretty good. Yeah.
Speaking of those two as well. Another one of the incredibly annoying criticisms of this show that I was reading last week, a few weeks ago, we had feminists complaining. This week, a few crackheads on the internet are offended by the portrayal of crack users.
Crackheads use the internet, huh?
Some apparently, because there's been a uproar from the crack addict community saying that the portrayal of crack use in this episode was extraordinarily unrealistic.
Just let me say that if there are any crackheads listening to this podcast, you are a degenerate piece of shit, low life, and please stop listening to this. Go on.
Yeah, it's just I found it hilarious. That people.
I'd like to do some crack though.
Yeah. Watch 6 Feet Under, I'm just saying. But anyway, I find it hilarious that people can complain about the way that crack was portrayed unrealistically, and it's making light of crack addiction. That was the main complaint, which I just found immediately hilarious. And second, also, she was more affected by her brain thinking, "Oh shit, I've done crack. What's my parents going to think?" That was what was making her go insane more than the actual crack. So it wasn't, her behavior wasn't purely influenced by crack. It was influenced by her own, neuroses. And so the complaint is completely hilarious, and B, it's also not true. So yeah, people will just complain about anything.
So Charlie and Ray's a band. Does it mean that they sound completely different than they sounded in a couple episodes ago? Or was that just a different thing that they were doing?
Maybe.
Because they were up there, he seemed completely incompetent and didn't even really know how to play guitar. And, there they were in this episode actually sounding like a real band. So I don't know what happened.
With more than just 2 members.
Yeah, with drums and shit.
Yeah. Yeah, maybe it was like a sub-band within the band like some people do sometimes.
Anyway, yeah, back to the Adam and Hannah thing. I guess they're together now. The relationship, while complicated before, seems to be complicated from both angles, as to where it seemed just it was complicated from Hannah's point of view, where she just viewed him as, or he just viewed her as, we thought that he viewed her as just some girl that would come over and fuck him, and you didn't really give him too much drama and blah blah blah. But now it seems that I guess he wanted more, or wants more.
Yeah, maybe we'll see Adam start interacting with the rest of the group now that he's out there and they all know who he is, and at least one of them's met him. So the dynamic might change there a bit.
Any other plot points in this episode that we have smoothed over?
Don't think so. I think that's all.
Did we mention that they're all at a big party? I mean, I think we did, right?
Yeah. The party was pretty intense. A pretty New York City party.
Any other thoughts on this episode, or do you want to move right into Veep?
No, overall, I think we can move into Veep if you want.
I thought it was a really good episode, and a really good episodes. It's a really good show, and I wish it wasn't just 10 episodes. Sure, we're getting like fucking 60 episodes, like 3 a week. It'd be sweet.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to the rest of the season. I'm wondering maybe if there's going to be some sort of epic season finale cliffhanger, but it doesn't seem like that would be the sort of thing that this show would do.
All right, Veep, Dave.
Yes, this week's Veep, but baseball, not basketball. I almost said basketball. Baseball.
Why would you almost say basketball? The entire episode takes place in a baseball stadium.
Well, because I was looking at the title and I pronounced it wrong.
There's no K.
I know. I was just thinking of the fantastic Trey Parker and Matt Stone film Basketball.
And there's no T either, but I also agree Basketball is a good film. I watched it one morning while drinking vodka and Powerade in a cup, and I drank a lot of it, and I was drunk by 8 a.m.
That's the perfect drink and time of day for watching basketball.
It was great. Me and my friend walked into a CVS, which is a drugstore. I don't know if in Australia if they sell alcohol in like regular drugstores where you can buy.
No, they don't.
A bunch of other stuff. Well, they do here. We walked in there. We bought a 24 case of beer. It was 7 a.m. We came home, drunk that, and we finished that. And we had vodka and Powerade, and we killed that, and we got really drunk, and it was cool. And I watched basketball and Face Off.
Huh. Face Off. It's like looking into a mirror, only not.
Mother's taped off her side of the TV. We rented a movie called Man vs. Face. I didn't even know he had a problem.
Anyway, Veep, yes. Selena goes to a baseball stadium for the Baltimore Orioles, which is called, Cam?
The baseball stadium they are at is called Camden Yards.
Right.
Actually, Oriole Park at Camden Yards. It is a baseball stadium in which the Baltimore Orioles, a team in the American League Eastern Division in the American League, play Major League Baseball. They are currently in first place in the American League and are having a better than expected season. Anyway, Selena is there, along with everyone relevant to her, for a little thing for her Get Moving campaign. She looks horrible. She looks mad. She's not into it. She hates it. And she has to deal with a bunch of fat guys who are trying to eat this shitty food. And the guy who used to be in Lost and Mad Men there taking pictures. And
that guy was great. I love that guy.
Touching people and having hot hands. And that whole thing was very Seinfeld-y.
Yeah, plus we also had the subplot of Selena's possible pregnancy.
A very a weird angle for the show to take, I thought. Just to have a pregnancy thing, and I don't know. It kind of makes it weird that her gender is now a big role, as opposed before. I mean, it wasn't really. But now that the fact that she's a woman makes a much bigger deal in the context of the series, and that's a change that I did not surprise. It's kind of a really sharp left turn in narrative, I guess. But I guess we'll see where they go with
it. Yeah, I think the gender part of it was always going to come into play. It's just that it's taken this number of episodes to become a big deal. But with Armando Iannucci at the helm, I always knew that it was going to be a part of it, and he wasn't going to just gloss over it because that's not his style. So yeah, it's interesting to see, and I think it's gonna make the last few episodes of the season a lot more high stakes and probably funnier as a result, because I think the setup of the show and the premise works when the stakes are really high, because all the characters are so much funnier when they're on edge all the time.
Well, they're always on edge, which, of course, I agree with. One of the great lines from the series, or the season, one of the great lines from the episode was when Selena and Amy were outside, and she was just like, I could have unprotected sex with like 30 guys, one after the other, and it'd be fine. And and then she was thinking that if she had to get an abortion, she'd have to go on a vacation to Mexico and kill a doctor in a desert. And just the way she's switching from these different tones, it's really childish, and it's really. I was laughing at that entire scene.
Yeah, kind of reminded me of Genghis Khan a little bit, but it was a pretty funny episode. We had a nice little couple bits with Jonah, even though it wasn't really in the episode a major amount. He was hilarious. The bits that he was in, the bit where he's having the conversation with the photographer about how he's got a 1D and the photographer is only using a 5D. That's such a Jonah thing to do. Just buy a $7,000 camera completely unnecessarily.
Another Jonah thing to do is completely insert yourself in scenarios that make you look important and which you have no responsibility over. Like when he was also adjusting the people into the photo, acting like he knew what he was talking about. That's one of my favorite Jonah things that he does, and he did it in this episode, and it was great. But yeah, the whole pregnancy thing. The show hits back on the toilet humor with Gary getting urine in his face, and she's Selena spilling it on herself, and like her shitting her pants a couple episodes ago. And they do the whole thing when Mike explains to Amy that he said that she was repugnant and not pregnant. And she's got the cup of pee in her hand, and she says, "Why am I repugnant?"
Yeah.
So it's a little, slapped you in the face with that, but it was still funny. And
it works because she's more concerned immediately with why people would think she was repugnant, as opposed to this whole possible pregnancy scandal.
And then she gets all mad at him for fucking it up, even though Amy did.
What's the name of the dude that's playing her lover, by the way? He's the guy from The Office, but I can't remember his name.
Todd?
Yeah.
Ted.
Yeah, Ted. Yeah, he's...
that guy's pretty cute.
Yeah. He was the boss in The Office, the one that got fired in season 5 or something like that.
I haven't watched like an Office episode past like the first 2 of season 4. Fuck yeah, Haslam just threw it down in the fucking Celtics defense. Leave that in, because Moon Mang's going to be listening to this. I want him to hear that. Haslam just fucking threw it down in the face of the Celtics defense.
That's basketball, right?
It is.
Yeah.
The Miami Heat are up 107-105 against the Boston Celtics in Game 2 of the Eastern Conference Finals with 1 minute and 27 seconds left in the first overtime period. Wow,
that's a close game. Are you sure you don't want to pause this and keep watching?
I am watching it right now. We don't have to pause it.
Okay,
I just won't comment on it anymore unless like LeBron hits a game-winning shot, which we will leave in. So in this episode, we get to see a little bit more of Gary's backstory. The fact that his father's disappointed in him, and that he's not a jock. And he spends the entire episode promising his dad that he's going to get a picture with the Orioles, and uses these ridiculous words to describe to his dad what they're going to do. Like boom shakalaka, a word I haven't heard in 10 years.
The best bit was how it all goes down while he's trying to, he's buying pregnancy tests and he's taking them for a girl, and like he's being completely subservient the whole time he's on the phone with his dad. And then at the end, we see him really badly Photoshop himself into the photo.
Yeah, that was it's a great show. I really love Veep. There was some stuff about it when it first started I didn't really particularly enjoy about it. The tone, maybe, I don't know what it was. I really couldn't put my finger on what it was that kind of turned me off to the show. But I've liked every episode, and it is getting better, and hopefully the show sticks around for a while.
It's interesting the way it's been paired up with girls on the same. It's directly before or directly after. Either way, it's on exactly.
It's before girls.
Yeah, it's
comes
before.
10,
Directly
girls comes
before.
10:30.
And then it's on the same network, and they started at the same time, so they've kind of been paired together, even though they're completely different styles of comedy. But they both work really well on really different levels.
Also, I'm going to be downloading Freaks and Geeks tonight because Ben Hagee told me to
that
watch
show.
that.
Oh, it's so good.
No, so I'm going to watch it, and that's something we can probably talk about.
Yeah, for sure. On this week's Game of Thrones, Blackwater, we had a change of pacing, a change of style a little bit. The focus of the episode was all on one place and one particular event, a major battle in the series, the Battle for Blackwater, which was pretty awesome. What were your thoughts?
This was an outstanding episode of television. You knew this battle was coming, and you could tell HBO threw every dime at it that they could. The effects in the opening scenes, well, not the opening, it was halfway through the episodes, with the wildfire and the explosion, which was like Pearl Harbor, and the explosions were nuclear, and everything looked cool. Everything looked great. And you had outstanding performances from Tyrion, from Cersei, from the Hound, from Bronn in his short moments, and it was a great episode.
Yeah, it was not one that I personally. I mean, I knew there was going to be a big battle, but not having read the books, I didn't know what it was going to be, where it was going to take place, how it was going to work. I knew that the wildfire was going to be obviously going to come into it at some point.
You didn't know that it was going to take place at King's Landing when Stannis was coming?
Well, yeah, but I didn't know the exact circumstances of the battle like people that read the books would.
Well, I figured, that what they were. I mean, I'm not going to berate you, but you can take this out if you want.
No, I get it. No, I mean, I knew that it was coming, and I knew that it was going to be at sea and all that kind of stuff. But the actual sequence of events, the way it worked, I hadn't predicted that to happen like that. But it was done really well, and it was good because it was a good expression of Tyrion's battle prowess and his intelligence when it comes to planning for a defense, and to shows that he's good at what he does, being Hand of the King, which is going to change now that his father's back, because he was only Hand of the King because Tywin was off busy fighting Robb Stark.
Something like this has not been really attempted on television before, something of this scale. The battle scenes in this movie and the production qualities and the way that it was directed by Neil Marshall. This is not something you see on television. And the way that it all happened was very gripping. And I really loved the intersplicing scenes they had with Cersei and Sansa. And I thought those set a very good tone for the urgentness of the battle that was happening just outside their doors.
Yeah, it was. It kind of felt. It felt you really understood the sort of horrible emotions that they would have been going through, expecting the battle to be lost and expecting the Stannis' army to come through and get through them all, as it were. But yeah, it was very well done, and Lena Headey did a great job in this episode.
She rules. She rolled the shit out of this episode, and she always rules, but specifically, she dominated. It was great.
It was
who kicked ass in this episode too?
Who?
Stannis Baratheon.
Yeah,
you can definitely see why he has so many followers. The way he goes up that ladder first and starts cutting people's heads off and stabbing people in the groin and the other battle things that he did in an episode.
Although it's kind of overshadowed by his influence, the influence that the new religion that he's a part of has on him. It's kind of overshadowed by that a little bit. Varys and Tyrion were talking about how if Stannis becomes king, it'll be awful because he'll be unpredictable because he'll be under the control of Melisandre and the whole Lord of Light cult thing.
Yeah, we haven't seen her in a while, so she's kind of in the back of the audience's consciousness. Now that he's been captured and they've been defeated, I wonder what kind of she might try to pull some tricks or whatever might happen because of that.
It was it's interesting to pair this episode. Obviously, this was episode 9 of season 2. It's interesting to pair this episode up with episode 9 of season 1, with the episode obviously where Ned Stark is executed, and how the two different penultimate episodes, the way that they're both big game changers and they're both epic episodes in the true sense of the word, but in different ways.
Yeah, like you said, you compared this episode to last season's episode 9. It was the emotional, zenith of the season. And this episode shared that in common with it as, a lot of, you saw Cersei kind of getting drunker and drunker as, she thought they were going to die and they were all going to be raped. And you saw Tyrion kind of step up and realize that, he already knew that Joffrey's a pussy, but Tyrion, is a man of such small stature, had to inspire all these men to, give their lives to protect the city that they live in. And he roused them to do it, with a great speech, and it was emotional, and the moments hit right. And I like how both penultimate episodes kind of got you in that emotional high point of the season. And a lot of HBO shows, like The Wire and The Sopranos, have the most important things happen in the episode before the finale, and you kind of do a little bit of decompressing, but, who knows what's going to happen in episode 10 of Game of Thrones season 2.
Yeah, I think one of the predictions that we can make, which I said before, is that Tyrion's going to feel a little bit, maybe a little bit useless or a little bit off-put, a bit out of place by his father finally coming to King's Landing and taking up his position as King, Hand of the King, because obviously that was the plan the whole time. Tyrion was just doing it until Tywin got back. So now that he is back, Tyrion's going to feel a little bit off-put by that. Also, I think one of the things that I predict is going to happen is that the Mountain, Gregor Clegane, who is obviously the Hound's brother, whose real name is Sandor Clegane, by the way, he's probably going to be really fucking annoyed at his brother for taking Sansa and getting up and getting out of King's Landing. He might chase after him, maybe.
That'd be pretty intense, those two going at it.
Yeah. 6'10" and 6'11" or whatever they are.
Back to the Tyrion thing. Yeah, he's gonna. A lot of his identity in this season has been derived from the fact that he has been the Hand of King and has had some power and was able to wield his intelligence in a way that actually mattered and made a difference. And now, we're going to have to see what's going to change for him. And that's something I was enjoying the role that the character was in, but now we're going to have to see it in a different role, I suppose. Because I'm assuming Tywin's going to stay, but who knows if he does or not. I would assume they would. But yeah, things are changing for Tyrion, things are changing for everybody. And things have changed for a lot of people. And this episode nailed that whole battle and everything. And I know it was downscaled from the books, but there's only so much you can really do on TV and still keep everything concise. And I thought they did a really good job of that.
I really liked Varys in this episode as well. He, the guy that plays him, I don't know his name, but he does a really good job of portraying this kind of multifaceted sides to the character. Like, he's obviously a very troubled person, like being a eunuch, having this sort of knowledge about the things to come, but he's also sort of seedy and a little bit perverted. But he's a nice character, and I liked Davos' little line about how Varys knows what you had for breakfast 3 days ago.
I tweeted that actually. Lord Varys knows what you had for breakfast 3 days ago. There's no surprising them. Was that it?
Yeah, I think so.
Did we talk about Bronn and how baller he is?
You mentioned it briefly, but you didn't talk in great detail about it. But he was pretty awesome in this episode. He was he's womanizing, but also getting to know all the Lannisters, and also just being, just generally being a good guy.
I thought his scene with the Hound was pretty cool. Seeing a guy like Bronn who is towered over by the Hound, and his brashness. He doesn't give a fuck. I mean, he would have fought him. He would have got fucked up. But, he didn't care. He would have did it anyway. And Bronn's a badass. He doesn't give a fuck. I love that guy, and I would totally watch a Bronn Tyrion spinoff where they were,
moving together.
Leader of the King's, or the Night's Watch, or whatever the fuck it is, the King's Guard, and Hand of the King, and some other fucking place. It would be pretty sweet. I would watch every episode 3 times.
There was not much else to talk about in this episode, really, considering most of it, all of it happened in one place, and there was no touching on Robb, there was no touching on Jon, there was no touching on Daenerys at all. But I think that the situation where Tywin's military force has now moved to King's Landing is going to change things for Robb a little bit.
Yeah, that's his ultimate goal, is to get there and fuck Joffrey up. But he had to realize that reinforcements would be there soon enough, and he's been killing them every other place. And, that's his ultimate goal, and we're not going to see that this season. But yeah, that will change things for him. All right, let's move on to Mad Men. And this episode of Mad Men, episode 11, called The Other Woman, continues to slap you in your face with its themes. That, nobody's ever going to be happy, and that Joan is, some kind of object, and that, she's a commodity. Just, this is a very important episode in the context of the series, considering that Peggy decides to peace out of Sterling Cooper Draper Price and go work for Teddy Chow for $150,000 in 2011 money. And finally get out from under the looming hand of Don Draper, who will always in some capacity see her as his secretary, and as will everyone else in the office. And she has decided to spread her wings and go to somewhere else where she will be judged only on her merits when it comes to creative talent. And,
or so she thinks.
Go ahead.
Yeah, I was just going to say, also she thinks, it's still 1966, and she's still a woman in a business. There's only so much that they're going to not see her as a secretary. The big thing for me about this episode, I loved it. This is probably my favourite episode of the whole season. The big thing for me, obviously, was the Jaguar pitch, after everything I was saying last week, or maybe it was the week before, about Jaguar and how important it is, and just how perfect that scene in this episode where Don and the rest of the Sterling Cooper Draper Price people make the pitch. I love the beginning of it when they were in the dealership and they were walking in and another agency was walking out. It was that was a nice little moment, and they were sort of smiling and being cordial with each other. But the actual pitch itself, sort of counter interposed with Jones' sex scene, as I suppose you might call it, with the Jaguar executive, was just so well done, about how it had so many great sort of levels to it, about owning, about how you can own beauty, and how it can be bought, and how it's sort of elusive but attainable, and it was just a really amazing piece of filmmaking.
Yeah, that's what I was kind of talking about, with slapping you in the face with its themes, when Don was talking about how beautiful a Jaguar is, and you can't really own one. You can only grasp one, and intersplicing it with the scenes where Joan's being, treated the same way Don's describing the vehicle. And the main complaint I had about this episode was a lot of the characters were false in the way that you expected them to react, in the way that Joan goes from "I'm not a prostitute" to "give me 5% and I'll suck his dick" in the span of an episode. And Pete, obviously you would expect to want to do it. Roger doesn't give a shit. Bert doesn't give a shit. Lane basically, encourages it. So they're all willing to, Joan, a person who is, really, done a lot for them, more than she's been paid monetarily. She's worth more than she's been paid, and she's done so much for them, and they are willing to toss her aside like a commodity to use them for their own monetary gains and their own personal gains. And when Don went to her and told her that he didn't think that she should do it because, who would want to work for a company like that? Who would want to hire a company, like that? It was very naive from him, and I didn't buy it because he obviously didn't really care if she slept with him. He just wanted it to be about him and creative, and he wanted to win Jaguar at his his merits alone, and he didn't want, some kind of sexual tryst to be the reason that they had won the account. And you can see how he kind of doesn't really care about it. And he scoffs at the celebration when Peggy asks him to talk, and she breaks up with Don. But the whole, it just the way that Joan was using this in this episode kind of didn't really ring right to me, and I didn't exactly love it the same way that you seem to, and a lot of other people have.
I just felt that it was a really interesting turning point for so many of the relationships that we've had over this series, like the way that Don and Joan have had this kind of unspoken trust, which is now broken. They've had this. Joan and Roger have had this unspoken relationship. Well, not so unspoken, but they've had this relationship which is now effectively completely gone. Lane and Joan had that little moment, which is now completely gone. Joan's always hated Pete, and now she hates him even more. And I just really like the way that Joan took control of the situation. She knew what had to be done. She knew that the sacrifices that she had made for the company this far can only do for her so much. And if she wants to make this final ultimate sacrifice, then she's going to have to take charge and demand this money and this position. And she's finally realizing that she's able to achieve what she wants, as well as just offering all this help. And so I really liked it for Joan's character development more than anything else.
A thing that happened in this episode, which I thought was totally unnecessary, and not like anything I would ever expect Mad Men to do, was cutting back to this scene where Don goes to Joan's apartment and tells her not to do it. They showed entirely too much of this scene, and it's another example of them almost completely throughout this season a lack of subtlety. And they did not need to show Joan going out there and having the same conversation and, a whole 45-second scene, which I'm not even sure why they would put back. I mean, we knew as soon as her mom came in the room, that's, Don wouldn't come to the apartment twice, obviously. Mad Men, you're better than that.
Yeah, that was, I agree with that. That was a little bit off-putting. They could have just shown Joan going out in the bathrobe, and that would have been enough, really.
I did appreciate that, the sleazy character that Joan sleeps with asks the line, "Let me see him," which is what all of us have been thinking since 2007.
Well, since 2001 to me, when Firefly was on.
Okay, well, whatever. Yeah, we should probably go fuck ourselves, Dave. We should do that right now.
Why?
Nothing. But yeah, Peggy. Another theme in this episode. Everyone has a price. Hers is $19,000. Jones is 5%, which, who knows how much the business is actually valued at. Is going to be a lot of money.
$50,000, or is that 10%? Is $50,000?
The money was a different thing, but Lane suggested a partnership to her because that would be something that was more permanent.
Sterling, Cooper, Draper, Price, Harris.
Yeah, it's not Sterling, Cooper, Draper, Price, Campbell, Harris either. the name's not on the door yet. I'm sure she's not going to get her
No,
name.
probably not. It'd be cool if she did. It'll be interesting to see in the last 2 episodes the way that the rest of the staff deal with having a female partner.
She already acted like she was a partner anyway.
Yeah,
and I really don't think that the show's going to touch on it, to be honest. One of the main thing in the episode that was awesome was Christina Hendricks' performance. She's a really underrated actress, and probably the most underrated actress on the show. But she sold it emotionally, and the way that she got to the apartment and she maintained control, and she was she controlled the situation like she does.
it was interesting to see. No, go on, carry on.
No, go ahead. I had nothing to say.
I was going to say it's interesting to see the way that Christina Hendricks is someone that is often so idolized and so sort of objectified as a beautiful woman, and also, but she's obviously got great acting chops and she's really good at what she does. And also, Joan is really good at what she does. But in this episode, she was asked to reduce herself just to a sexual object so that she could land the company an account.
It's not the first time that Joan has forgiven rape, even though this wasn't rape. She seems to reluctantly use her sexual gifts and her looks for money, which, like I said, everybody has their price.
I wonder if now that Peggy's left the company, we're going to see less of her, or if she's going to remain prominent and we'll still see the way she develops in her new job.
Yeah, it would seem weird to me that they would suddenly start showing, Peggy interacting with the other guys at her new agency as, what is it, Cutler, Gleason, and Chow?
Yeah.
So, I don't see how that's going to really happen. That would be too much of a budget for AMC to greenlight. So I don't know if she's going to decide against it and come back, or we're just going to see her sparingly like Betty.
It would be a shame if we did, because she was such an important main character for 5 seasons of this show. It would be sad to see her go. It's been a wild ride for Peggy over the past 5 years, and it would be a shame for us to abandon it.
Yeah, obviously, Elizabeth Moss is an outstanding actress, and that would be terrible for her to leave the show, which I don't think is going to happen. There's certain ways in which the show can have her. Maybe Don will cheat on Megan with her. That would be pretty sweet.
I don't think that would happen. I don't think Don would do that. They've got such a complicated relationship. I don't think there's any sort of sexuality left in it anymore. It's more of a family relationship than anything else. I think the way that Don doesn't want her to go and gives her that long kiss on the hand. It's really sort of it's intense, but it's I don't think there's a sexual subtext to it. Maybe I'm just
that was an outstanding scene, by the way.
Yeah, it was so good. The acting from the two of them was just unbelievable. It was so raw and emotional, and the way that I kind of expected Don to fly off the handle a little bit and just go insane, but he was just so overcome by the thought that Peggy's not going to be coming to work anymore. He just couldn't do anything else but grovel. And it's interesting to see that Don is someone that's most of the time so domineering over women. Like, he throws money at Peggy and he shouts at Betty, and he's the only one that can keep Betty in check, and he shouts at Megan, but really he's got this codependent relationship where he needs women in his life, probably from having no mother. It stems from that, but he's got this thing where he needs women in his life, but when they're there, he sort of doesn't respect them as much as he should.
Imagine a scenario, though, in which Don and Megan have a fight, which the show is clearly pointing to, and she has nobody to turn to. And since he doesn't work with Peggy anymore, it wouldn't be directly awkward every day. So imagine him calling Peggy, asking her to meet him for a drink. They get super drunk, and Don destroys her pussy. That would be awesome.
It would be weird. It would be like watching brother and sister have sex, I think.
Not really. I would jerk off to it.
I bet you would. I probably would too, actually. It'd be pretty sexy.
See? But yeah, this episode, they get Jaguar, they win. They got a car now, so I mean, like I said, things are changing big time. Peggy's gone. They've got a car now, Don and Megan are rocky. Joan is willing to fuck dudes for money. Pete is going bald.
Pete's going bald?
Yeah, look at his hairline.
I didn't notice that.
Roger doesn't care. He has 2 lines, and the whole everyone's a piece of shit in this show now. Everyone's everybody except for like Ken and
Don. Really, Don was one of the good ones in this episode, like Joan said.
Dawn.
And Dawn, yeah.
Ken and Dawn are the only 2 people in the office that are good. Everyone else is a piece of shit.
No, Don was good in this episode. I think he was a good guy. He wasn't.
He wasn't. Like I said, he didn't care about Joan. He just wanted to win Jaguar by himself and not by it. He didn't want Joan's pussy to help him.
No, he respects Joan.
He still doesn't care.
Oh, he's selfish, but he still respects Joan, I think.
I agree with that, but I still don't really think I still think he cares much more about winning Jaguar by himself than he cares about Joan fucking some dude.
Yeah, you're probably right. I just want to ultimately believe that Don's a good person at the end of the day. Helps me sleep at night better.
I don't think he's a good person. I think he's a jerk. I think he doesn't value personal relationships with anybody. I think that he is toxic in relationships. He's obviously somebody who cheats on his wife whenever he wants. He uses his sexuality as a weapon over... Okay, wow. He had 15 times he did it, and he hasn't done it lately. He's been married for a year. He's a good guy now. He uses his sexuality as a woman to gain control over people because he craves control. He verbally, assaults all his employees, including Peggy, for years. And she's a trooper to stick with it as long as she can, or has, or did. Don's not a good person at all. He's got good in him, but I wouldn't say he's a good person. There's not too much about him that is admirable that isn't pure jealousy.
Anyway, I don't know if you can... Yeah, there you are. What happened?
What was the last thing I said? What was the last thing you heard me say?
You're talking about how Don wasn't a good person, and then you just kind of stopped.
Where did I stop specifically?
You said... you said he manipulates his staff, and then you said... Oh, fuck, I can't remember now. You said some shit.
But yeah, I just I don't really think Don is a person that is very good. There's some good in him. I think he's intensely complicated, and most of his problems don't allow him to be a very functional person in relationships. And most of the things about him that are admirable are surface level things like wealth and looks and intelligence and his power over women. So I don't think he's a good person. All right. Partners, I guess it's about time to hit the dusty trail. We had a good time today. Dave dropped a juice box on the ground, but picked it up deftly, and nothing spilled on his carpet. And he got to drink all the juice, which is crucial.
My mum will never even have to find out.
Nope. It reminds me of a story before we wrap this up. A couple years back, probably 10 years ago, a friend and I were in his basement, and I was horsing around with another kid on the stairs for some reason. We were just, dicking around like guys do.
Horsing around. Enough horseplay, you two.
We were horsing around, and I knocked his glasses off his head, and they broke. And we got into a verbal altercation about blame and monetary compensation. I was 16, so I was like, fuck you, make your parents pay for it. And then I didn't imply, but I told him to lie and say that he lost his glasses falling down the stairs and that they broke on their own. And all he would say was, but they still have to pay for them. And I was like, bro, you're 16. You don't want to get in trouble for this. And he was like, dude, they still got to pay for them. So I called him a douchebag, and he left. And I never know what happened to those glasses.
Well, you never saw him again?
I'm sure I did, but I know I bought a Dreamcast game later that day, and it was Virtua Tennis.
So what's the moral of the story? That you should always lie when something
You should
bad
always
happens?
lie when something is your fault if you can get away with it.
Oh, okay, yeah, sure.
That is our message, as Betty Draper sucks.
Yeah, thank you very much for listening. Don't forget, check us out on Facebook,
and iTunes,
YouTube,
and
iTunes, everything.
iTunes.
Yep.
Subscribe
Just,
to our podcast on iTunes. You don't have to do anything, and just open your iTunes, and it'll come in there, and you'll listen to it, and you'll be sexually insulted.
You can still give us views on YouTube
voices,
and likes on Facebook if you want. That'll be cool.
Yeah, please do that. Do both. Do all three.
But yes, thank you very much for listening. Thank you for helping us along to 10 episodes.
If you download this episode of iTunes, I'll come to your house and shake your hand.
Yeah, me too. It's
guaranteed. Anyway, yeah, this episode's over. Bye, guys.
Goodbye.